When I read Bill Mollison's quote about 17 years ago, I started to sob. His quote, his concept, though the problems of our world are increasingly complex, the solutions remain embarrassingly simple. When we take the poisons out and we grow food instead of lawns. And that's what I love so much about Bobby's campaign strategy. Let's take the poisons out. If that's all we did, we would change mass extinction around the world.
Are you familiar with the San Padrignano model in Italy that Bobby refers to for people with addiction and who are experiencing addiction and recovery, and how they learn to they go into a community where they learn to grow their own food and they learn a craft, and they put down the cell phones and they give them a 4 year commitment. I'm not sure the exact time frame, but they come out, like you said, with a much greater chance of a future for themselves, and the success rate is astounding. And my understanding is that aligns with what you described before with prisons and with even with schools, and how we can empower people towards self-actualization and produce a healthier society. Where
Yeah.
again, what we're talking about is harnessing this to a greater sense of community, and not where I'm deriving benefit because I'm taking from you. That
Yes.
can't be the source of a long-standing society, right?
Right. And the beauty is that the infrastructure for what I'm talking about already exists. We just have to create awareness around how to use that existing infrastructure in a way that serves us exponentially. Because right now, a lot of these pillars of our society, the health care system, which is failing, right? The monetary system, which has failed. All of these structures and pillars could be just tweaked, and we take the poisons out and we start using our resources in a regenerative way. And it's the most selfish thing we could ever do. To those billionaires and the wealthy out there listening, get a hold of us. We have the solution, the online marketplace being stood up right now. And we have an Earth Council of the most viable and proven solution providers in the world that are standing this up together, 12 of us. And I'd like to share with you a little bit about who they are and why, to help people see the value of this.
Please do.
Yeah, I know you got Joel Salatin's one of them. Is that right, Jim?
That's right. Joel Salatin, who has, if you haven't seen his TED Talk, he absolutely turns the carbon narrative upside down with regards to growing cattle. He builds soil, and his cattle are way more nutrient dense than the cattle you buy that are raised with poisonous food. Right? So he's actually putting carbon into the soil. It's the ultimate carbon fixation plan, is to use animals in their natural way with biomimicry. Right? So when we have 50,000 new small cattle farmers with maybe 5 or 6 head of cattle around their local little communities and parks, now we just decentralized that major piece of the food supply chain, and it's logical and profitable on every level to do this. Right? That's one of our council members. Another one is Lisa Mollison. Lisa and Bill. Bill is known as the father of permaculture, and he created this science that starts with the ethics of earth care, people care, and reinvesting our surplus to earth care and people care. She is the steward of the Permaculture Institute's vast library of knowledge, which literally has within it the solution to all the world's biggest problems. And Theo Fleury, he was a Olympic gold medalist. He led his team to the Olympic gold and then led another 6 teams to the Stanley Cup gold. And he suffered great trauma as he was raped as a young player. And he is now one of the world's foremost speakers on trauma as being the root cause of all human suffering. It's absolutely incredible. He is our trauma expert. And Pat Miletich and Doc Will Spencer. Pat Miletich was a 5-time UFC world champion, the toughest man in the world, who then trained a dozen other world champions. And he is now a soil savior. And he brought to the team Doc Will Spencer. And this cannot be understated. Doc Will Spencer has studied the great soil regenerators of our time, and using a combination of biodynamics and living organisms, he has a product with 1,300 different living organisms that can literally eat the heavy metals and the poisons that are sprayed in our water and on our land and in our guts. And it can digest them and turn them into bioavailable fatty acids. This is an absolutely huge solution. So those are
Hmm.
four of our council members, and we have eight, and they're equally epic. So we're coming together and we're following Martin Luther King's advice. Those who love peace must learn to organize as well as effectively as those who love war. That's what we're doing.
Wow. And there you go again with the solutions, Jim. How dare you?
It's fun.
uh, yes, and that is astounding information. Now, are those gentlemen, are those people you mentioned part of the Earth Council?
Yes. We have
Uh-huh.
12 members, and they
Okay.
are part of it. And then we've got bee solutions. We've got longevity and healing solutions. The Bloomberg Healing Technology of the Year, John Baxter, he's with us. And Marjorie Wildcraft, one of the world's leading women in regenerative agriculture. She has class after class on teaching people how to turn their yards into productive growth spaces. It's phenomenal.
Well, we have. I want to let Johnny come in here in a second, but we're focusing on the industrial complex world. And you mentioned one. We're talking about in our Curators podcast, the military industrial complex, the monetary, which is the system with the Fed and the government and the debt and the deficits, right? The medical industrial complex, the media industrial complex, the food and agriculture industrial complex, and then the educational industrial complex. So we've identified six major ones, all of which have strip mined the people for their own gain, and not and it's happened over a period of decades. Jim, it didn't start out that way. I think post World War II, it was about making the community richer, but as will happen when you're a superpower and you become the world's reserve currency, and then greed starts to set in, and imperialism, and this sense of entitlement, and deficits don't matter, and we can go on and on and on, right? All of a sudden now we find ourselves in a very untenable position. There is no way we can get through this without some major sacrifice. But if sacrifice means finding our way through your solutions, then that is a sacrifice worth making, right? Where we take the power back from Wall Street and we bring it back to Main Street. That's what's happening here.